Good morning or afternoon, depending upon where you are. We're so glad you've joined us today for the Fall Brass Symposium. We had one great presentation already, and we have a couple more coming up. Right now, we have Margaux Patel and Rebecca Olson, who are going to talk about, and I've lost my notes, isn't that terrible already? Innovation Never Stops, Libraries in the Venture Lab. We are recording the session, and we ask that we hold questions until the end. So if you will type your questions in the chat, I will with those and ask those at the end of the session so Margaux and Rebecca can answer them. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Rebecca and Margaux.
All right, hello. Can everyone hear us okay? Yes?
I'm assuming
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
excellent.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so welcome to our presentation on Innovation Never Stops, UC Libraries and the Venture Lab.
I'm Rebecca Olson. I am the informationist for Business and Social Sciences in the Department of Research and Data Services at the University of Cincinnati Libraries. I work with people finding, using data, cleaning data. I'm also carpentry certified. In my previous career, I was a law librarian at a private law firm where I did patent services and competitive intelligence.
And I'm Maggie Patel, or Margaux Patel, and I'm the Business and Data Analytics Librarian at UC Libraries, and I'm the liaison to the business school. Before coming to UC, I worked as a corporate librarian doing competitive market research for an insurance company, and I also was a law librarian before that, and that's basically it. So today we also have a team behind us that we've been talking about. They're not giving the presentation, but we wanted to make sure that they were included. Ted Baldwin, he's the Director of Science and Engineering Librarians. We have Mark Chalmers, he's the Science and Engineering Librarian. We have Melissa Previtera, she's our Health Sciences Librarian. We have Katie Carlson, who's the Director of our Claremont branch, and we have Hong Chen, who is our Global Sciences Librarian. We also have student workers that help us periodically, or they change periodically. We're going to come back and talk about how we built this team in a later slide.
So our learning objectives today, we hope that after viewing this, you will learn how to become embedded into entrepreneurial endeavors on campus. You will learn some methods to support innovators and entrepreneurs virtually. You'll learn how to recruit support within your library and learn how to assess and evaluate your program.
Basically, the outline of our presentation today is going to be plan, do, check, and act, because that's basically what we did with the 1819 lab program. We planned for one of their cohorts, we actively do the program, we check back on what we did throughout that program, and then we act differently or improve what we've done for the next cohort.
The 1819 Innovation Hub is part of an initiative at our university. The University of Cincinnati has a long history of innovation, being the home of the first co-op program in the country. As part of our Next to Tier mission, many new initiatives promoting academic, commercial, and community relationships have been and continue to be developed. The 1819 Innovation Hub, this building you see right here, is the first building in the innovation corridor to be created. It was built in a renovated Sears department store, and it houses on its ground floor a huge makerspace and a micro factory that allows students and UC staff and faculty to create and develop new prototypes. It also has collaboration spaces with education classrooms in there and meeting spaces for the community. Innovation, we have corporate satellite offices of local major companies such as P&G and Kroger. They have actual offices here. We also have tech transfer for intellectual property concerns for campuses located on the top floor, and the Venture Lab, which is what we are here to talk to you about, is in this building as well.
The Venture Lab. So in 20. In 2018, the Venture Lab started their first cohort. There are 10 teams per cohort, and they opened it initially out to UC faculty and staff and students. And then in later cohorts, they broadened it to Xavier students, University of Dayton, Wright State, Cincinnati State, and community members. The program is 8 weeks long, and there are 5 lessons. There's a graduation and then a follow-up. And then at the end, everyone can participate for state funding and startups. Within each meeting, there are entrepreneurs and residents, which they're called EIRs. They're the librarians, and then there are specialists. The specialists are people that are like, experts in patents. So for example, there will be lawyers from a local law firm that come in and they're experts on patents. There are also tech transfer experts there, and people that are more specialists in the finances. The homework that each person they have each week, they kind of like do with each little class that they're taking, each lesson. So the first lesson that they have is like on how to learn more about your product from potential consumers. So the participants have to do interviews. Then another lesson is on how to do your market research, and the participants have to make a market landscape report. And then they also have to learn how to do storytelling. At the end, they have to do a presentation, which is a pitch and ask, and it also lets them make the connections with potential investors.
So how did the library get involved with this? Well, there was an engineering professor who was involved in an earlier cohort with this program, who asked our science librarian, Ted Baldwin, for market data. So Ted found a marketing report using Maggie's excellent LibGuides, and then he realized that there was probably a need for more assistance. So Ted and I have both worked in industry before, as has Maggie, but we approached the head of the Venture Lab and the instructor who does the marketing week, and we talked about what we could offer. And they thought that was a great idea because they had been spending most of their time teaching the members how to use marketing databases and not actually how to do marketing and how to do research your customers. So then Ted and I met with the dean of the libraries and the associate dean of collection development because we had concerns about violating vendor agreements, since this is sort of a commercial affair and you're not supposed to do that. And both of them came to the conclusion that as long as these venture team members, these cohort members, were affiliated with the university, and some of them are just for the 8 weeks that they're part of the program, some are much longer, some are actually employed here. As long as they are affiliated with a UC related program, we could provide the resources that they need. So we formed the library innovation team. And we were formed to provide market landscape support for the cohorts. But another benefit for everybody is that we now provide specialized reference to the Venture Lab staff, including for teams and cohorts that go on to additional levels of funding. And through all this conversation with the Venture Lab and the EIRs, we had this one repeating comment: we had no idea you offered these services. So how did we do it? Well, what we did was we did a need assessments with the pre-accelerator team, the Venture Lab. We found out what they needed, and we came up with a presentation, and we found some resources that they may want to use. And then we presented for about 10 or 15 minutes during the cohort week 3. We used their guideline. They had something called a fried egg chart, which we'll show you later in the presentation. And we, as the library staff, created the full market research analysis for them because we thought we were helping them by doing the research and coming up with that. We met with the entrepreneurs and helped them fill out the information, but we didn't really have a set time to meet with them. We kind of met with them after the class, and sometimes if we were assigned more than one team, we would not have enough time to talk to them. So it was kind of a mess. But, okay.
And then that was that first session, the first one that we attended. So then the second one was where we had to stop and check what we did and adjust moving forward. So we met with the program administrators and they let us know what like they thought needed adjusting. And the main result of us doing this full market analysis was when the participants were giving their pitch at the end, investors would say, hey, tell me more about this data that you have or that you're presenting or you're kind of using for your argument. And they would just respond, I don't know, the library handed it to me. So they basically took our brilliant work and just.
And that's not what we want.
No, that's not what we wanted. So we worked on how we could streamline what we had delivered to them so they still could get the data points, but they would still have to actually read it and think about what they were getting. And then we continued that process with the next cohorts. So this is actually so if you guys are looking at the same screen as me, it would be the fried egg chart is on the left-hand side. And this is the sheet that they were required to fill out. So you can see that they were trying to find out like the different market sizes for their industry or their product. And then what we did is they would fill that out and hand it to us, and we would try and find the data points that they needed and give them the report. So it worked, but we actually were able to turn it into a Microsoft form, and our health sciences librarian actually filled this out. So now we get it delivered to our email and into Teams directly. So what we do is the participants fill out the form, and after we've heard them present, and we kind of like pick out which product matches closest to our area of expertise, then we pick those out and we'll respond back to people with that data.
Yeah, and also to fill in a little bit more details too about the form, when we were given this market landscape document, it was a fillable PDF, but that was a technology challenge for a lot of people. Unless you're in business or in IT and you're able to fill these out quickly, it's a challenge for community members. I mean, you may have a PhD in brain science, but you may not be able to manipulate Adobe. So keep that in mind when you're creating forms for people. Make sure it's easy to fill out. So this is a sample of some of the projects we've worked on, from business processes and cryptocurrencies. We've done lots of science. We have a lot of drone research going on here, a lot of medical devices, mRNA treatments, a lot of education platform. We've also done things that's different from furniture and toys, wearable tech. And we've also focused on alternative agriculture and pollution mitigation. So what we did was we had to recruit from various departments, librarians, and so we needed more help. So we ended up getting cross-training. So Maggie did most of the business training for market reports and consumer data. So, you know, the HSL librarian and the science librarians were able to learn about that. Our health sciences librarian taught us about some resources we weren't aware of for medical information. The science librarians brought up the standards and industry information that some of our other team members were not aware of. And I brought up an easier form of doing patent searching using the lens.org instead of trying to use complex total patent one and things like that. So again, this is our slide. This is our library innovation team. This is the second time we're showing you this, and you can see the various areas we're from. Ted, Maggie, and I were obvious choices because all three of us have worked in private industry. Mark was invited because of his strong science background, and he has an aerospace engineering degree, so he's been a big help for the drones. Melissa stepped up because we needed more help from the health sciences, And we also have 2 satellite locations, Blue Ash and Claremont colleges. When we noticed we were getting people from Claremont applying, we reached out to Katie, who's the director, and she was able to fill in for a couple of sessions. She mostly helps us in the summer. Hong Chen is our most recent librarian. She's a global services librarian. She also works with a Chinese university that we have a partnership with, Chongqing, and so she mentors any of the students that were part of that, who were part of the Venture Lab as well, and our student workers too.
So with our student workers, they've been another aspect that we've had to work with. So how we got them was that we had this issue where we were spending a huge amount of time pulling the data, helping, especially that first cohort, helping out with making the market analysis. And our library, I'm sure a lot of you might be having this happen as well, is very understaffed, and we have no additional money. So what did we do? The Venture Lab was like, hey, you guys are helping us. How can we help you? And we were like, give us money for a student worker. And they did. It was great. So the other problem was like, how did we find students and who will train them? Well, luckily we have a lot of great business school students and design school students and people who want to participate. So we recruited within our colleges that we liaison with, and we were able to hire some amazing students. And Rebecca and I, we trained them how to do it. We sit down and we actually walk them through the LibGuide and show them how to do a lot of the research. And then also the students attend all of the sessions. So it's an extra bonus for them because they get to go through this program without having to apply for it. And they shadow us. So the benefits are great. The students are gaining new skills. They're actually doing actual research and using the resources, which builds up their resume. The librarians get to delegate, and the students can help with other business related library tasks. So if there's a LibGuide that I have that relates back to the 1819 lab, they can help me update it.
So what happens when the world shuts down? We started with cohort 6. We adjusted and did cohort 7. Cohort 8 started on March 4th, 2020. And then the library, the whole campus shut down. However, the Venture Lab jumped up and said, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to do it virtually. We're going to do it on WebEx because that's the platform where everybody had access to. So the Market Research Week was the week that we presented on the 24th of March. And we did do our presentation remotely. And we talked about the intake forms, and we communicated with our teams through email. We did not have any virtual meetings for that session. We may have talked by phone, but it was mostly email communication. We had the online graduation on the 28th, and then the 12th of May, cohort 9 started, and we were right back up on it. And we realized after cohort 8, we needed to have a better strategy. So we decided to create WebEx meetings or meetings, virtual meetings with the teams that we were assigned to, half-hour meetings the same week that we did the research week, so we could talk to them in person.
So these virtual meetings turned into basically a reference interview, where at the beginning of this whole, like the first cohort, where we kind of haphazardly had to like interject into little meetings and interrupt things, we actually were able to have a one-on-one reference interview. And in these reference interviews, we have the person that we're working with the participant give us their pitch again. First of all, it's great to hear their pitch again because it helps me write down some keywords that I might want to use for my my searches. Second of all, it gives them a chance to practice just another time of giving their pitch. Another thing that we go through is like a typical reference interview. Like we ask them what data and resources have they already accessed. And a lot of times people have done like a Google search and found like the $1,500, $5,000 market research report that sometimes we might have access to it, or we have access to something very similar, but it gives us an idea of what they want. And then we'll also ask them, like, what are some additional numbers that you might be looking for, or other data points, and then we can help them do that. A great thing is that when we do have UC affiliated participants, we can take them to the LibGuide and teach them how to do searches, and they seem to really respond to that because they can go back afterwards and get into these resources. So what's the technology that we've used for these virtual meetings? There have been a lot. So we've flipped back and forth, and I don't know if it's a UC thing, but we go through Zoom, we go through Teams, we've used WebEx, we've used LibCal to make our appointments, we've used LibGuides to help with the research. We use MS Forms to submit things, and SharePoint and Google Drive. The main challenges that we've had have been with internet bandwidth. That was mostly when we were in the midst of the shutdown, and me personally, and I think Rebecca too, we were working remotely. We had a spouse that was working remotely, and we had 3 kids that were doing remote school. So these online meetings would just crash our whole system. So that was one of the issues. Another thing was sharing folders and file sizes. Sometimes the reports that we're pulling and sending to people are huge and they won't go through Outlook. So we've had to kind of work around. I know I like to actually create a chat with the people that I'm working with on Teams and send them things, and then they can ask me questions. And Rebecca has created Google Drive, right?
Yes, when I have people outside the university and they're not able to access OneDrive, or their email system can't handle large files, I have a UC Google Drive that I set up that I share with them.
And then the last type of challenge that we actually were talking about earlier is we have an academic mindset of we have to teach you how to do things, versus the corporate special librarianship where I'll just do it and hand it to you. And we were talking about it. You had a really
so it's a little bit of both. We being of the corporate background are more apt to say, okay, I'll just do it for you. But then we realize, if we are able to teach people how to do it and show them the LibGuide, they're more apt to go back and do it themselves. However, the only teach you how is missing the point of this program, because a lot of them come from health sciences or engineering, and they're full professors, or they're teaching surgery. They don't have time to learn these resources. So you need to take that with a grain of salt and evaluate the situation. That's the point. Fine-tuning our process. Well, we do this almost after every cohort, and what we found is that people are very grateful for the assistance we provide. Even if we can't get something, they're like, oh, that's okay. And that's my next step. Don't overpromise. Don't say, oh, you got this research report that you found. Yeah, we can find it, because chances are you can't in your academic. The academic reports are not the most up to date. They may not have something, but you can always say, I can help find something similar to you. Assessment matters, but it's dependent upon others. We were not able to set up an actual assessment form, because the way the Venture Lab handles things is they do exit interviews, and we just have never been able to get in with that. But we do meet regularly with the administrators of that program, and they tell us what's working. Use technology wisely, as I referred to the Google Drive. Try to be flexible if the people you're working with are outside of the university system. See what works for them. And so what are the benefits to the library? Well, there's a ton of them. We've done a lot of cross-training with our teams. We've gotten more campus recognition because the Venture Lab actually mentions us during the graduation events, which are broadcast live and are recorded as well. We get a student worker. We do more outreach to campus because we've worked with people in various departments we may not have worked before, and they say, oh, I remember you, you helped me, can you help me find this? The librarian relationships improved. We have a very big campus, and our medical librarians are on completely another campus, but because of this, I think we have a much better relationship with everybody. And libraries are seen as being part of the cool kids. When you think of library, you don't think of innovation, even though we are very innovative. We've always been innovative. But by having us as part of this initiative, they're like, oh, yeah, the library gets it. So a brief overview of our stats. We've had 12 cohorts. since we've started. There's over 150 teams we've interacted with, and about a third have gone on to the next level of funding, which I think is a really good stat.
So what's next? We want to discuss what's going on beyond. We have 5 minutes, thanks. So we want to discuss what's going beyond the 18, what we've done so far. So innovation is pretty common at UC. They like to throw that word around, and we often don't know what we in the library are doing, but with this innovation team, we've been like prepared to respond to what might be next. So we've taken service models and we've taken it for interdisciplinary groups like in DE&I, and we are providing a structure on how to respond to these programs in a virtual and hybrid settings. They let us jump in without delay. It also helps us become like ready to be part of the community and engage within community more. One of the mission statements of UC is Next Lives Here. So Next Lives Here, one of the parts of it is engaging with the community. So as we are working with community entrepreneurs and the EIRs and different people, it's letting us engage with them. The other part that we talk about is the library being a cost center. And we just discussed this. This is like very like things that we just think about. This is not what's happening, but we talk about like, could we potentially become research for hire? Could we help people access grants, things like that,
Or
like,
written into grants.
or be written into grants. Yes, so that's like things that we talk about. And then we also talk about our future partnerships. So there's digital futures building in that innovation corridor. There's other tech startups in our community that maybe we could become partners with. And then we also talk about expanding to other academic units within the campus. So for example, there at other colleges or departments like the College of Education, they might have an entrepreneurial program. We know that the business school has its own separate thing. So we know how to get in and already help with those sorts of endeavors.
And then finally, we do have some more information in the slides. There's an article that we wrote for The Source, which is our library blog. Put the link to the Innovation Hub, the link to the most recent graduation, and our market landscape LibGuide that you can take a look at and borrow from. And again, reach out to us. We're available. We love to talk to people about this. And if you have ideas, you want to bounce it off us, we're cool with it. All right.
Yeah, and now we have our discussion questions, and I think that we were going to hear what the chat questions were too.
Yes. Do you want me to start with the questions that came in? We have a few.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Okay. And some of them are two parts. First one is the Venture Lab separate or part of the MBA program?
It is separate. The closest thing that we have going on in the MBA program and it's not entrepreneurial, but they have capstone projects where they work with businesses within our community, and they use me to help them do that research, but it's separate.
And actually, our School of Design has a similar capstone project, and the professor who teaches that course requires his students to look at the graduation from the Venture Lab. So that's another influence on campus.
Great. Okay, so the follow-up to that is, can students use this experience as credit towards graduation for anything?
I don't believe so, because it's an addition to other things. We have had students who have won their innovation, because we have lots of award programs on campus, who have developed something through their capstone and then they apply to the Venture Lab program. But no, you can't get credit for it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you educate the faculty how to refine expectations on secondary research that we can't afford that source? Or has the program provided you funds to expand your collection?
That would be wonderful.
That's
yeah.
what we need to do next.
No, we only use what we have available, but the faculty is really understanding because they're part of the faculty. Sometimes we have issues with the community members who don't understand why we're a big institution that can't buy a $5,000 report.
The only thing that I would want to say is, do you remember how they were trialing the innovation team? They were trialing a product and they got us like
We did get
to
a
it.
seat, but it wasn't something
We
that
didn't
ended up
think it
working
was
using,
great.
yeah, so.
I think we told them we didn't think it was great, so we give them source evaluation.
Okay, so kind of speaking about the community members, are there challenges with licenses for subscription database content and community users, and how is this addressed?
Well, we did have a meeting with our Associate Dean of Collection Development, who was the one who approved our usage of it. And actually he retired, and the current person who's in charge of those is Ted Baldwin, who's on our team. So he makes sure that we're following, along with what the agreements are. Basically, because these community members are part of a UC program that they had to apply for. It's a free program, but you do have to apply for it. If they are considered UC affiliated members, and we're able to do research for them. They are not able to do the research on their own unless they come into one of our main libraries to use the terminals.
And I would say sometimes after they've graduated, they'll come back and say, hey, can you help us still? And we have to tell them that we can't help them unless they are still associated with the program.
Okay. Did you consider teaching them how to create a market research report on their own? And why did you choose to do the market research for them?
Well, so in that third session where we come in and we kind of like pull the data for them, Dave Zellen is the expert that's leading that session. He is teaching them how to actually write it out. The thing that we were having an issue for, so that first time we did the entire market analysis for them. We were like, yes, this is exactly where all your numbers fit in, and this is what it will look like, and here are all your potential competitors. But what we do now is just pull the reports, and we might give them some high level bullets, like this has this section in it, and this has the part you want here. This one has more competitor information, so they know where to go.
And Dave is an adjunct faculty too with the School of Business, so it makes sense for him to teach that, and we're just providing the data.
Okay, and I have another one here, and then I think another one has come in. Can you say more about the balance between helping the entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial students how to research and finding and synthesizing the information as a service?
Well, we could offer that to students if they needed help with it, but this is only an 8-week project, and our week is only 1 of 5 lessons. So they learn through storytelling how to take data and turn it and their ideas and how to turn it into a presentation. So this is a really quick program. So we don't teach analysis, but we might say, hey, talk to this person, or we found this information that might support your argument.
Okay, and this is the last one unless another one comes in. How might you scale this down so that a single business library could make an impact without the help of an innovation team? And what would you focus on?
Wait, what kind of librarian?
A single business librarian. I'm the only business librarian at my school, and apparently there are several others out there. So,
well, technically I am the only business librarian. Rebecca is.
Yeah, I'm with Research and Data Services, so we do more data management. So we kind of built it.
Yeah, and so I mean, basically Ted got the idea, and then he talked to you, and then you guys pulled me in because.
I mean, I could see maybe partnering if you have a public library or a local institution that offers small business assistance, or the patent depository. There are some libraries, public libraries, that offer that information. It's possible you could work with them, reach out to them to see, hey, how can we support your community innovation? How can we support each other?
And I would talk to other librarians.
Talk to other librarians.
Within your institution.
Right? Because you may not realize that the science librarian is dealing with people who are trying to do entrepreneurial things, and they don't realize that you have the market reports that will help them out.
Okay. That's all I have on my end so far. So I think I see you have some discussion up.
Okay, so the questions that we had today that we were just going to open up for discussion, because we always like to hear from other people and what they're doing. The first one was, what are your connections to your institutions into innovation in entrepreneurial programs?
And you can unmute yourself if you would like to speak.
And we have, I see chat, so we can't actually see the chat, but I can see the chat's going up.
Somebody has posted they are just starting one, so this information is helpful. Offering similar programming. I'm the official liaison to the programs.
Great. So another question we were interested in is, how do you support entrepreneurial endeavors? Do you offer classes? Do you advertise your services? We don't have enough staff to be able to do that, but word of mouth comes through the people who participated, and a lot of times we help other people who come to us. I'm just curious how other people are doing it.
So I've got a couple coming in. I teach workshops for our curricular programs and in developing a research workshop for our students. We have met before, but I would like to do more. I don't think they see the value of involving the library because they can show business research. I'm hoping to observe one of the contests soon. It's been hard with the pandemic.
Yes.
Person said we are not at the moment, not enough staff.
Yeah.
It's entrepreneurship works with our makerspace, and that is the closest thing we have. Another says, I used to spend a lot of time with their pre-COVID, but then the university let go of the director, and it is essentially now just a landlord-tenant relationship with incubating companies. Someone else says workshops, consultations, collections, makerspace. Another says, don't know if anyone is familiar with Scale Up, but looking to connect with other businesses, librarians who might be involved. They put in a link. The libraries provide instruction and resources to our entrepreneurial students and programs. Another says we work with our Center for Entrepreneurship, which includes teaching classes, working with their business incubator, working with the entrepreneurship boot camp for veterans, judging innovation competitions, and also working with engineering entrepreneurship. Also, we are a patent and trademark resource center. We are at public, academic, and special state libraries. That was a long one. More, our university has a monthly lunch Zoom for the EIRs, faculty, and support like me who work with entrepreneur. And because other people are answering. So we have knowledge and we are on the same page. Another says I do workshops for our entrepreneurship incubator, one of the entrepreneurship classes, and I also get referrals from SCORE and the Small Business Development Center. I can only use the free resources with them.
Mm-hmm.
Another says we offer market research workshops through the University of Ottawa Entrepreneurship Hub as part of their entrepreneurial mindset certificate program. And I hope I got everyone's because it kind of jumped around on me. So.
And thanks, Christy.
Yeah, thank you, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
So the last question that we were wondering and we were curious about, if anyone is including their student workers or how they do that, or undergraduates within this process, and do you think that it could, or how it impacts their research skills?
Because nobody has enough staff, but we found that hiring student workers and training them helps them out
It helps us
and
out.
helps us out as well.
So far, no chats. That one.
And I also wanted to give a shout out to the Cincinnati Public Library, because they do provide a lot of business support, including patent searching and trademark searching. And I always refer our community members there if their time with UC runs out. So thank you to the Cincinnati Public Library.
Okay, we have a couple of watch the ELC events, and there's a link in the chat. We offered market research for the provost's office. We had graduate students helping with the collection of information, but it was hard to keep up. Training them to this type of research was time consuming. Another said if we could get them starting their first year and keep them all 4 years, I would do it.
Yes.
Another, I'm trying to remember the name of the office on campus that looks at business partnerships. The students who work there have scheduled consultations with me to get information. So we did get a little feedback there.
That's great. I definitely think it would be amazing if we could get like a freshman.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes.
It would be wonderful.
We had one person and they were like, I'm graduating next month. I was like, great.
And I can imagine journalism students would be another good resource to look for students to help out, because they need to know these resources as well.
Someone suggested maybe recruit from the business school.
Yeah, we
We
do
do.
that one. That one is, they like are eager to
Very
help.
And I also want to point out, so I did put the link into the graduation, the most recent graduation. If you watch them, you will be able to see when they flash up figures and stats and things like that. I would say most of those come from what we provide them. So you can see how they turned the numbers into a story.
We have one more comment. At the University of North Dakota, we have something called peer research consultants that filled reference questions at the Reference Research Commons. They are fairly heavily trained, but of course they eventually graduate and move on.
Mm. I like that. Yeah, I like that
I
idea.
like that idea too. These are great ideas. Thanks for sharing with us.
And I appreciate you guys all listening to us today.
So is there anything else? Are you ladies done?
I think
I
we're
think we're
finished.
finished.
Yes. And
I-
please, like, on that one slide, we had like our contact information. So if anyone feels like reaching out, we'd love to talk about it.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. We really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. It's